Okay, we're now going to listen to Damien Richardson. Damien's from Cafe Locked Out. He's running as an independent. Thank you, Damien.
You the man, Damo?
Hey, Damo!
Look out. Look at you, Australia. Good on you for turning up. How fantastic. Southeastern suburbs. Wonderful. We are in an existential crisis. We're under threat as a country, like I don't think we have been under threat before. And I'm not talking about the wars because this is different. We're being attacked actually from within our institutions who no longer support or look after our interests. And I've just been flabbergasted at how many institutions I can include on that list. And no one's coming to save us. A lot of people don't even care. A lot of people think they shouldn't have shot at us with rubber bullets. They should have used live ammunition. We're in a serious, serious predicament. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself to start with. I grew up in a working class family. My grandfather was a very proud rat of Berwick who fought against Rommel's panzer divisions. And he instilled in me the importance of sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. And I was always grateful that he stood up for himself. But it was also a family where there was only the Labor Party. My mum told me you weren't even allowed to mention Menzies' name back in the day. Okay, that's where I came from. And I went to university and I had the same chip on my shoulder from the Whitlam sacking, even though I was 4 when he was sacked. Yeah, and this is it. This is the ideology that you grow up with, you know? Now, in 1998, when Pauline Hanson ran as the federal member for Oxley, when she ran for the Senate, he voted for her. I couldn't believe it. What had happened? And he was a man of few words, and he said, "You don't understand. You don't understand the half of it." And he turned his back on his faithful Labor Party, which was for working class people. And it was many years later, and I saw a lot of different things, and I saw a really good friend of mine go through the family court system. And I was horrified what happened to that man on ideological grounds. And before women get upset about that, it's not about women. They use the patriarchy in 2000s basically to tip men upside down and tip out as much money as they possibly can. And then they steamroll the women at the same time as well. They don't care for anybody. So I saw that and I started to write articles on cultural Marxism. You reckon I could get them published? I couldn't believe it. Really well considered, thought article. I spent hours and hours and days and weeks on them, hand them in. Sound of crickets. No one was interested. There's this particular feminist at the time called Clementine Ford, just writing screeds of hatred about males. And of course, all the people in the arts community thought this was a wonderful celebration. Finally, the ladies were pushing back. And I'd had enough. So I wrote an article defending the West. I had a job at that particular point in time on 7 West Media. And I tried to get this article published, went through the same round of knockbacks as I always continue to go through. So I thought I'd publish it on Facebook myself. Put it up. I put it up in my friend group. Anyway, I got a message through my agent from 7 West Media that I didn't need to come into work tomorrow. Kid you not. Yeah, and that's like around 2012. Gillard is at her height. We've probably heard the misogyny speech by this stage. The misogyny speech levelled at a man who had 3 daughters and a long-term loving wife in Tony Abbott. And I think at that point in time, Julia Gillard had just had or was having an affair with Craig Emerson, one of her ministers, who also had a wife and children. Now, it's the rhetoric that I can't stand. Not the judgment, but the rhetoric. It's a lie. But the problem is, how can you identify the lie if you're not allowed to call it out? Because to call it out, you transgress something that I've never even known what I'm transgressing. Political correctness, that's what it is, and identity politics. So, I thought, oh, what do I do? What do I do? So I thought, I don't know what to do. I'm not even allowed to support the Liberal Party. I thought that they're meant to be for small business. So I start reading Robert Menzies' 42 speech for the forgotten people, where he's defending all of you people. Read it. Go and have a look at that speech. It's an extraordinary speech, the height of the Second World War, 1942. The spectre of the Soviet army is facing us all. There's an unholy alliance, and they know it's an unholy alliance because there's a communism that's going to just run over the top of Eastern Europe in a minute. And he writes this speech in defence of us. And I go to the Liberal Party and say, I'm going to run for you guys. Here's some articles I've written. I might as well have been with the Greens. No, I said, so we didn't know what to do with you. We thought, great, you're an actor. We're going to get someone sort of slightly left wing. This is going to be fantastic. And they didn't know what to do with me. They said, do you want to run in Murray? Out near Shepparton. Because they didn't know what to do with me. So I moved away from that as well, yeah? And then I'm licking my wounds because I've lost my job. And I've got 3 kids and a wife at that stage. And I didn't know who I was. How could I even have these thoughts? Who did I think I was having them in the first place? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Because there's no community necessarily to talk to, but it's just a really small community. And so I'm full of fear and anxiety. And then I have my experience in the family court too, where if I give the ex money, I'm trying to stop her from expressing herself. If I don't give her any money, I'm stopping her from being who she needs to be. You can't win, you can't move. It's ideological, it's an ideological trap. And then when Corona comes along, I feel the same feeling in the pit of my stomach. This is a lie, and it's an ideological trap. And now, the ideology has slipped the moorings. Yeah? So I stood up. I cannot live like this anymore. I sat at home for a while, and I cannot live like this anymore. And I got involved in the protest movement. And so we it felt really good, especially those first few times, and I was there with other people, man. It was extraordinary. People were hugging each other. People were crying. There was tears. I cried. I was so disappointed. I'm trying to be strong and masculine, you know, blubbering. But it was, the camaraderie was extraordinary. And then just all I started hearing, as I went on Cafe Lockdown, all I heard was this heartache. People losing jobs, people losing families, losing children. The division, just swathes of division through the community. And for what? For what? No one was dying. Do you really think you need to tell me to keep my kids at home if I thought people were dying on the street? I'm going to do it. I know to do it already because I'm capable of taking responsibility for myself. I'm an adult. And we're all adults here. And if we're not, we're children in the protection of loving and caring adults. I'm not going to I'm not going to hand over my ability to be responsible to myself for a government. And a bunch of bureaucrats at that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about in the first place. Staying apart keeps us together. What I found out, the protest was staying together tears them apart. And Shane Patton, that lovely police commissioner, was he comes out and he starts admonishing us. He stops short of calling us white, but he's basically a bunch of angry, middle-aged men. Nazis, ultimately. But he forgets the fact that he is exactly one of those men himself. But it doesn't matter. As long as you're giving lip service to the lie, it doesn't matter what happens in reality. This is just a theoretical reality created by the bureaucrats that are oppressing us. But eventually, he goes quiet. Because eventually, there's not 1,000 or 750 or 2,700, whatever. There's over 500,000 Victorians. 4 weekends in a row, standing on the steps of Parliament in Spring Street demanding change. And And it is yes, but it's also no, because it meant nothing to the institutions. It made no change whatsoever. I couldn't believe it. I thought, here it comes now. This is impossible to ignore. And ignored it was. Not only was it ignored, we were still admonished. People like Patton went quiet, but the reality was we didn't get any resolution that we were after. And there was a few parliamentarians that came out, a few parliamentarians in the Victorian Parliament, fair enough, but we're talking federal here, and there's about 7 of them. There's 227 parliamentarians in the federal parliament. 7 of them are somewhere against the narrative. 7. And I hear the common law groups, and they say, let's devolve from the system because the system's so corrupt, there's no point voting in this election. Well, how's that going to work for us? It's the Labor and Liberal minions are still going to pile in and vote for them. There's still going to be a federal parliament after 21st of May. They're still going to be enacting laws that oppress all of us, enforced by the power of the state, the police, and then the military too, obviously. And they say, oh no, there's no good politicians. But then they say, oh, did you hear the speech by George Christensen? Or Alex Antich? Or we've heard today, Pauline Hanson? So people are still getting hope from the political system. Clearly still getting hope from the political system. But we've got the largest protest movement in the country because we've got the most onerous lockdowns, and we don't have one parliamentarian standing up for us in the federal parliament. And that's why I stood up and ran. Because I want to be that voice. I want to be that voice. I want to be that voice for my children. You know, I was late here tonight because I had to cook 3 different meals. Got a celiac, 2 vegetarians, and I'm normal. They're my children, you know? And I love them. I love them dearly, and that's why I'm standing up as well, because I couldn't live with myself as a male who was just supplicated all the time in his bedroom. Oh, I better not say that. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend your sensibilities. Is that okay? I'm so sorry. No, well, enough's enough. When do you stand up? Yeah, now. Because you know what we're really guilty of. And this is what the cultural Marxists use against us. And this is what we're facing. Cultural Marxism is our original sin. And our original sin was coming to this country on January the 26th, 1788. That was our original sin. And there's nothing we can do to make recompense for it. It doesn't matter what you do. But what you have to do is offer lip service to it. Lip service to welcomes to country, or if you're not Indigenous, of course, it's just an acknowledgement of country. And then you go back to living your life, making as much money as you can out of the system that was imposed on them in the first place. It's their land, but you don't have to give it back. What a great deal. You know, and it's a lie. It's a lie. I've got a friend, and his parents live in the Katherine, and they've got 4 Indigenous children in their care. They've been in their care for 7 years. They've had 2 jabs, the parents, and the children had only had 1. They let the children go, all 4 of them, and they said to the parents that you need to have your booster injection. The parents said, we've had enough. And they said, you've got 20 minutes, we're coming to get the kids. They're the same people that want you to lay down to a welcome to country. It's the same people, the Department of Human Services. So that's how much they care for the Indigenous crew. Don't buy the lie. But if we can't talk about it, if we can't say it for what it really is, then what hope have we got? If we can't identify the problem, what chance do you have of rectifying the problem? Absolutely none. And whilst I'm at it, I think it's really important because they're going to dismiss us. They already do. They don't have to dismiss us. You know, I was going to do an interview the other day on Gippsland ABC radio. Yeah, I talked to them on Wednesday at 12 o'clock. I talked to Ollie, the presenter, and he said, yeah, I'll have you on. We're doing a special on the federal election. I said, great, because I just spent some time in Trafalgar, actually that weekend, talking to over 60 people. It was a great day. He goes, cool. Then obviously someone's done a bit of research on my platform. I get a text from him at that night at 7:30. I'm sorry, we're going to canvass that show. And hopefully some other opportunities come up for you in the future. That's the lie. There it is, the ideological lie, because he doesn't want to give me a megaphone. He cannot be seen to be the person who gives me that megaphone, Because if he's seen to be that person within that institution, his name is mud, and he knows it. And that's right, absolutely spineless.
Shame on them.
Absolute shame on them. And there should be shame on them, but they should be called out. Well, who's calling them out in the federal parliament? Not Scott Morrison. No, not Scotty. He quarantined $85 million from the ABC when he got elected in the 2019 election, and he just gave it back just before he called this election now in 2022. So who's going to hold any of these people to account? We are. We, the people. That's all we've got. So my pitch is to you people, because what I'd say too is we cannot let them just paint us as extremists, because that's what they're going to do. First, they're going to take our voice away, not give us one at all. And if we do get a voice, they're just going to paint us as extremists. But we were shown no compassion whatsoever for any of the circumstances that we confronted throughout those, lockdowns, and it still continues to this day with the mandates. We were shown no compassion at all. But what we've got to do is we've got to appeal to those people that did, for whatever reason, under the best circumstances, decide to be part of the vaccination program. I know I've got a person in my family really close to me, a parent, who's thought I was nuts to start with. This is what the government have always done. Just get on with the program, take your jabs, Damien, get over it. Now she's like, hang on, I don't want a booster. I've had 2 jabs in 6 months, and now I've got to have a booster and another booster as well, just to do a pottery class. A pottery class I'll probably close down anyway if someone gets the snivels. She's not interested. Fair enough. And I've got another friend who's a tradie. He just wanted to go back to do some flooring. And he held out for as long as he could. And eventually he submitted to it. And he's like, I don't want it. And those people are more angry than anyone that actually hasn't submitted to the vaccination program. We've got to put our hand out to those people and tell them to vote one for Damien Richardson as well. Because I'm standing up for those people as much as anybody else. They're our fellow Australians. I've made some terrible decisions in my life. I wouldn't be standing here today if I hadn't been offered forgiveness from other people. And that's the compassion I thought we grew up with. When did they talk about all these different discrimination laws? You weren't allowed to discriminate anymore. What happened to that? Suddenly it's okay to discriminate. Go your hardest. Well, no longer. And before my friend starts discriminating against me for going on too long, no one said there was a time limit. I just want to thank you all for being here. Stand up, Australia. We can do this together. Cheers.
Spoken by D. Richardson, authorised by D. Richardson, Melbourne.